Good evening, everybody. My name is Lee Ackerman, and this is my case presentation on one of my clients. We will call this client Client L. The background information for Client L. Client L is a 90-year-old woman residing in Broomfield, Colorado, which is northwest of Denver. She has been living with a pacemaker for over 30 years and requires an oxygen tank to get around. She is a high school graduate and has worked as a waitress and seamstress. Her family. She had a husband who is deceased, son who is MDPOA, a daughter who has mental health issues and disabilities, a deceased son who was born with DD and died as a child living in an institution. Religion. Protestant Christian, but was raised a Catholic. More background information. Client's musical preferences. Old standards, country western, gospel/spiritual on the religious side. Client L is a fan of today's music as well. Her musical range is basically from the 1920s through the 1990s. The client's main diagnosis is congestive heart failure. Congestive heart failure occurs when your heart muscle doesn't pump blood as well as it should. Symptoms include shortness of breath when you exert yourself or when you lie down, fatigue and weakness, swelling in your legs, ankles, and feet, a rapid or irregular heartbeat, reduced ability to exercise, persistent cough or wheezing with white or pink blood tinged phlegm, increased need to urinate at night, swelling of your abdomen, sudden weight gain from fluid retention, a lack of appetite and nausea, difficulty concentrating or decreased alertness, sudden severe shortness of breath and coughing up pink mucus, elevated blood pressure, and chest pain, in case your heart failure is caused by a heart attack. All of these are from the Mayo Foundation for Medical Education and Research. A little bit more about heart failure. It develops after other conditions have damaged or weakened your heart. Over time, the heart can no longer keep up with the normal demands placed on it to pump blood to the rest of your body. The main pumping chambers of your heart may become stiff and not fill properly between beats. Your heart muscle may also weaken, and the ventricles stretch to the point that the heart can't pump blood effectively or efficiently throughout your body. The term congestive heart failure comes from blood backing up into or congesting the liver, the abdomen, lower extremities, and the lungs. However, not all failure is congestive. You might have shortness of breath or weakness due to heart failure and not have any fluid building up. Heart failure can involve the left side, right side, or both sides. Typically, heart failure begins on the left side, specifically the left ventricle, because it is your heart's main pumping chamber. Once again, from the Mayo Foundation for Medical Education and Research. Treatment for those who have CHF. You can take medicines such as angiotensin, angiotensin 2, digoxin, beta blockers, and diuretics. Surgery. You can have a coronary bypass surgery, a heart valve repair or replacement, an implantable cardiovascular defibrillators, and cardiac resynchronization therapy, or by ventricular pacing. You can also have a heart transplant as well. In the case of Client L, she decided to have a pacemaker installed. So how can music therapy help out in this case? As we have learned from Davis, Gefeller, and Todd, they define music therapy from the American Music Therapy Association website as an established healthcare profession that uses music to address physical, emotional, cognitive, and social needs of individuals of all ages, found on page 8. In this case, with congestive heart failure, all of these needs will be met. So goals and objectives for Client L. Goals. The first goal is to reduce anxiety and promote relaxation. The second is to encourage life review, and the third is to encourage emotional expression. The objectives. With goal number 1, Client will relax when music is being played. With goal number 2, client will participate in memory interaction in regards to life via music that will be played live by the music therapist, either on guitar or piano. 3, client will express their feelings verbally. This goes with emotional expression. Methods that will be used. Receptive and improvisation. In regards to receptive, the first one will be what client will listen to live music. Receptive number 2, client will explore past events through music. And through improvisation, client will express feelings on piano. That will occur once client and MTBC, MT-BC get to the point of the client wanting to express their feelings through music on the piano as opposed through verbalization. Treatment plan. The MT-BC will see client once a week on Tuesdays at 1 p.m. That is at the urging of the client. The songs in the session will be from country, western, and religious genres, with a few old standards and early rock and roll mixed in. Sessions will take place in client's home. MT-BC will lead in goals and objectives. Alright, music therapy treatment. After the assessment, MT-BC, we're going to skip the dash because you know what I mean. So the MT-BC felt that playing mostly country, western, and religious music would be appropriate for client L because those were the songs that client L responded most to. MT-BC played One Day at a Time as client L identified with the lyrics of the song. This was done through every session. This was the one constant song that was played through every single session. Other songs might have been played from week to week, like I Walk the Line, or an old standard like All the Anxiety, which we'll talk about on our next bullet. But One Day at a Time was played every single session at the request of the client. MTBC led a life review through songs like Danny Boy, as client L's husband's name was Danny, Green Green Grass of Home to remind the client of childhood, and party songs like Auld Lang Syne, as New Year's parties were thrown at her house. It also talked about all the other different social occasions that were thrown at client L's house, whether it was a birthday party or just having people over to sing along. Auld Lang Syne reminded her of that. Eventually, the MTBC let the client play on the piano to express their feelings. This was done as the condition and the CHF seemed to deteriorate, and through IDT meetings where it was revealed that the client was feeling anxious and needed an outlet to express their feelings. MTBC then decided to let client play piano through improvisation in order for those feelings to be felt. And by piano, I mean keyboard, as it was a keyboard, not a piano. Results. Okay. Through the various sessions, MTBC played songs such as Home on the Range, Hey Good Lookin', Twinkle Twinkle, Little Star, Hound Dog, My Clementine, The More We Get Together, He's Got the Whole World in His Hands, One Day at a Time, Amazing Grace, When You Say Nothing at All, and a variation of Goodnight Sweetheart, but was called Goodnight LH. Client's last name begins with an H. So obviously that's why it would be that case. Another frequent song was How Great Thou Art. I Walk the Line was played every other week, it seemed. And Danny Boy was a frequent song that was played as well. The results. Client listened to music and sang along to some of the songs being played. As the weeks went on, the singing along became less and less. Client also talked about childhood events. This was most common in The More We Get Together, as client in this case talked about childhood and friends and hanging out on the farm and singing songs. Client also talked about funerals and how also the client is the last one remaining of the family. Client L's sister passed away during our time together, so her mood and this started to happen once that happened. This led to more religious songs being played as a way of recognizing songs and funerals. One Day at a Time, Amazing Grace, How Great Thou Art were three of the common songs that will play. After one of the sessions, when we decided to use the piano, client L played Mary Had a Little Lamb. This led the MTBC to do an improvisation on the white keys as well. And this was between the MTBC and client L. Also, the other MTBC that was there chimed in, so it ended up being a trio as opposed to a duo. The client played the white keys as happy notes, and nobody switched over to black keys, which would have made the improvisation a little bit darker. This was done because of the happy mood that we were all in. Throwing black keys in there would have made it minor and it would have been darker. Interpretation. Throughout the weeks, client has seemed to recognize the end is near. Client in the past few weeks has been more talkative about her childhood and her family and how client is the last one remaining. Client is also a fighter and will not move on to the next stage until client L is ready to do so. The more we get together reminded client of country dances at their barn when the client was little. The SMT decided to play more childhood songs because of that flashback. NTPC feels that client is not talking about their hobby because they realize the end is closer than it has been over the past year or the time that they've been spending together. Termination process. At this time, termination is not an option. In fact, client L was also just approved for a few more months of music therapy work. Client L is a fighter, and even when things look bad, client L rallies. Music therapy will continue until client L's condition gets to the point where music therapy can no longer be serviced. To summarize, the relationship between the NTPC and the client L will not end until client's final decline. So I thank you all for listening to my case presentation on client L. And if you have any questions, you can talk to me after the presentation or shoot me over an email. Thank you all and have a blessed day.